Hey guys, what's going on? Basin Boy here, and welcome to the first review on this channel. And this game we are going to be reviewing is called Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Since this is the first review we've had on the channel, we're going to break down this game into different categories. The different categories are going to be graphics, which talk about the different graphical components of the game. Social, which includes multiplayer or mods or anything extra that could be added into the game. Audio, which include audio cues, the soundtrack, as well as any tiny little thing in the game that I think is important that relates to the sound and audio of things. Gameplay, which refers to action game, shooting, running around, how the game's controlled, to different people that you'll meet in the game. Value, which is talking about how much it is compared to how much I think it should be worth and how much I would pay for it on a USD scale. The technical, which for PC players will be important to see if you can run the game on PC and compared to how that runs on the different kind of consoles that this game is going to be played on. And finally, it's going to be narrative. The narrative aspects is where we're going to run into spoilers, so I will make sure there is a big warning when we get there so that if you do not want this to get spoiled, we will not spoil it for you. And attached onto that narrative, we are going to be having DLC, which talks about if the game has any downloadable content that I think is appropriate to talk about. I will make sure it is in this review. So starting off at the beginning, here's a little overview of what Skyrim's about. The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim is an action role-playing video game developed by Bethesda Game Studios and published by Bethesda Softworks. It is the fifth main installment in the Elder Scrolls series, following the Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion, and was released worldwide for Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 3, and Xbox 360 on November 11th, 2011. 3 downloadable content DLC add-ons were released: Dawnguard, Hearthfire, and Dragonborn, which were repackaged into the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim Legendary Edition and released in June 2003. The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim Special Edition is a remastered version of the game released for Windows, Xbox One, and PlayStation 4 in October 2016. It includes all 3 DLC expansions and graphical upgrade, along with additional features such as modding capabilities on consoles. Versions were released in November 2017 for the Nintendo Switch and PlayStation VR, and a standalone virtual reality version for Windows was released in April 2018. As we said, the first main part of this review is going to be focused on graphics. To start off this section, I would like to inform you that I played the Special Edition, which is the remastered version of the game, so therefore the graphics are a little more enhanced compared to the base version of the game. Compared to the original, when I played the original back in 2011, the graphics were definitely an upgrade. A lot of the textures were smoothed out. It's nothing compared to games that are released nowadays like The Witcher 3 or any of the newer RPG games, but it still has a complete smoothing package. In the world, it creates a beautiful horizon and soundscape. However, there's lots of reused textures throughout the world. It creates this world that is unique, and you can definitely tell that there's things drawn from other different cultures throughout the world. It really makes the world feel a little more alive, and I think it really adds to everything. Moving on, mods, which is kind of jumping into the social aspect a little bit, can help significantly increase base textures and add more overall to the experience than the base game can add. And honestly, for a game that came out in 2011, I thought these graphics were amazing, even with the base upgrade that was given to them in the Special Edition. So the social aspect of the game is the next part that we're going to be talking about. So for social, there's different mods and the Steam Workshop that is available to everyone who plays this game. Mods can range from story additions to just basic enhancement upgrades to even funny ones where all dragons become Thomas the Tank Engine. This allows for a lot of different replayability and can help bring new audiences into a game that may have not had it before. Next, we're going to be moving on to audio. So the audio is very immersive. There's a lot of different sounds, the crunching of the leaves, walking on wooden bridges and cobblestone paths each have their own sound to them. Also, your player getting hurt, even though it repeats itself a lot, it definitely gives you that feeling of, oh, I just got bitten by a wolf, compared to, oh, I just got stabbed by somebody. You can definitely tell the difference between the two. And it, compared to Oblivion and Morrowind, which are previous installments in the series, it definitely adds a new layer of audio to the game. There's also unique sounds for all the weapons that you are having. Like war axes sound different than from hitting a wolf compared to a human that has armor on. And the war axe sounds different from a longsword that might be hitting somebody. Pulling back a bow and shooting somebody in armor has a different sound than if you were to just stab them. It really shows that they paid really crisp attention to detail when they were creating this game. The soundtrack, oh boy. This is my favorite part of the game. The soundtrack helps add to the world and create a more immersive fantasy-like experience. If you've ever played Dungeons and Dragons before, or a similar game, it can help put you into that world that they're trying to create for you. Bethesda has a really good soundtrack that helps immerse yourself into the world. This can mean when you're using your special powers, making you feel powerful, to making you feel sad when something sad might be happening. They use the soundtrack in a way that helps the player feel like they are really in the world. Moving on to one of the biggest sections I have, which is gameplay. We're going to kind of break this down into pros and cons. So the pros. The core mechanics, I think, in this game are amazing. They definitely have, it's easy to follow. You press the buttons to ride a horse. They prompt you with everything. It's really good in terms of how diverse it is and how you can play different playstyles. Talking about these diverse playstyles, they allow for much more replayability throughout the game. You have mage, you could be an archer, you could be a roguelike thief, you could be a warrior, you could be a tank. You can kind of be whatever you want, and this game really allows you to do that. If I wanted to dual class, for example, my character that I played through, as you can see on the screen, was a Khajiit, which is a cat-like race, and I made him an archer thief. You can make yourself a light elf with mage and a mage that wears heavy armor if you want. It can be anything that you want it to be, and I think that really helps create a great experience that they were going for. Dialogue options create this amazing RPG experience. There's some that are funny, there are some that are serious, and sometimes, like any game, there's a limited amount of options and it might not be exactly what you're looking for. But it really helps immerse yourself into the world, like you're making your own decisions. Characters have different responses to anything that you might say, because it's an RPG sort of game, but it really makes you feel like you're part of the world. As you're exploring the world, you run into books and people that'll fill you in on the lore of Skyrim and the world around you. These sorts of things can even be from finding simple berries to talking about specific people who you might even meet later on. Side quests are funny, entertaining, story-driven, sad, happy, anything you can think of. All of these side quests have different ideas of what they want to be. Some of these are probably my favorite quests throughout the game. They have so many unique characters and even new storylines that might pop up because of them. I think that this is a really great addition, and it made the game feel more alive. Speaking of the world, there are lots of different people and lots of different races that you can meet throughout the world. As I said before, I was a Khajiit. You have dark elves, you have humans, you have lizard-like people, you have anything in between. It's really unique and really cool how they were able to implement all these characters into one single world and create the world of Skyrim. They have a great leveling system as well, moving into more gameplay sort of stuff. Great leveling system with all kinds of upgradable skills, and you can basically upgrade anything from enchanting something to smithing weapons to creating new weapons to restoration to one-handed weapons to archery. Anything you can dream of, you can upgrade. And it has a really unique system as well. You have to meet a specific level requirement, and from that specific level requirement, you can upgrade the specific skills that go along with that perk or trait or skill, whichever you want to call it. One of the unique things about Skyrim is that you have this cool element called dragon shouts. This is no story spoilers, but you obtain dragon shouts throughout the game, and dragon shouts add a unique magical experience to how the player works. It makes you feel more powerful and makes you feel like you belong, like you're a special person in the world, which you are. And moving on from dragon shouts, there's a good variety of enemies throughout the game. From animals to werewolves and vampires to people to anyone you can dream of. However, these fall into specific categories. They're the same standard types of people. You either have a mage, you have a bowman, you have a warrior, you have a tank or elite. Those are really the only types of enemies that you'll meet, even though they might be of different factions and different races. Those are the same types of people you will meet. Moving into the cons part of the game, most of the companions that you meet throughout the game are laughable at best. Some of them have some story significance, but most turn into extra backpacks that walk around with you. They turn into damage dealers if that's more of what their character does, and they can just soak damage for you if you're fighting a dragon or something like that. You're forced kind of into a single playstyle per playthrough due to the limited amount of levels that you will be able to achieve in the main story of Skyrim. Of course, you can branch off to side quests and upgrade multiple different things, but you're still limited to 100 levels in the game. This only allows for singular, maybe dual playstyles if you want, but it's kind of reforcing you to play it if you want to add specific aspects into your character. As you walk around the world, there are these things called ritual stones. These ritual stones can add specific perks and specific upgrades to your characters. These ritual stones seem to have little to no effect on how you play the game or any of the damage that you do, even though that they say they do. I felt like using these stones really didn't add much to my overall experience. Even though they're hidden up cliffs, I'd feel like I didn't have to go and get them because they really didn't add anything to my game. And the most awful part of this game is the bugs. There's so many bugs I ran into, I can't even count them on all of my fingers and toes. It's so many. Even though most of the game has been patched compared to when it was released, there are still many bugs, and I would say I ran into everyone about maybe every 3-4 hours I played this game. I've at least 50 hours in this game right now. I've run into one, as I said, about every 3 or 4. But the worst bug for me, as I play on PC, was the dialogue bug. If you scroll down on your mouse wheel and you click one of the things, it won't necessarily click the right one that you want. It'll go back up to the top and click the top one. For me, when I was doing story-based missions, sometimes this would cause a reaction that I didn't want it to. And therefore, it caused me to restart and from my last save and continue on with the story from there, hoping that it doesn't do it again. So the next section that we're going to move on is to the value. I'm going to be using the Skyrim Special Edition because that is the most readily available edition on all platforms. So the value on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC is $39.99, rounded up to $40 USD. For the Switch and VR version of the game, it is priced at $59.99, approximately $60 USD. For me, I don't think this game is worth $40 nowadays compared to some of the other games that we have out, or even $60 for the Switch or VR versions. Buying on a sale would probably be my best choice. I would probably pay about $30 with the DLC for this because it creates a new world for you to explore, but it's something that we've seen throughout multiple games by this point. The next section is more PC related, talking about the technical aspects of the game. So overall, it's not very demanding on a PC. The minimum requirements on Steam state that the OS needs to be a Windows 7, 8.1 or 10 64-bit version, an Intel i5-750 processor, an 8GB RAM for memory, an NVIDIA GTX 470 1GB for graphics, and 12GB available space for storage. The recommended are Windows 7, 8.1, 10, 64-bit version for the OS, Intel i5 2400 processor, 8GB RAM for memory, NVIDIA GTX 780 3GB for graphics, and 12GB available space for storage. So, as you can see, it's really not too taxing on any of the machines, and a lot of machines nowadays have those sorts of processors to be able to run on it. On PS4 and Xbox One, I can say that from videos I've seen and friends that I've talked to, it seemingly runs fine on all of them. On the Switch, however, a lot of textures are scaled down, and it kind of takes away from how beautiful the experience might be for people who play on PC and Xbox One and PS4. So if graphics are a thing that you might consider, I might not recommend the Switch version for you. At this point, we are running into the narrative version, which is from this point on, there will be spoilers. If you want to play the game, please stop here. So speaking of the narrative, the game main story revolves around the player's character to defeat Alduin, the World Eater, a dragon who has prophesied to destroy the world. The game is set 200 years after the events of Oblivion and takes place in Skyrim, the northernmost province of Tamriel. From that's just the basic outline of the story. You meet all these different factions, and it's all to beat this one main villain named Alduin. And Alduin, in my opinion, is not the villain that you want to be. Alduin is not the main villain of the game. Or he is, but he doesn't feel like it. He just kind of seems to run around and resurrect different ancient dragons to do his bidding. And when you fight him at the end, he just kind of feels like I don't know, another dragon fight. And by this point, when you've gotten to him, you've defeated multiple different dragons at multiple different levels with multiple different things. And Alduin just kind of seems like another dragon fight to you, even though he might have multiple stages or might heal himself up again. So moving on to the different factions in the game that you'll meet. The Greybeards are one of the first people that you'll meet. The Greybeards, I consider them one of my favorite factions. They help you learn to harness your powers and teach you how to use the dragon shout. You are, in the game, a dragonborn. You're born of dragons and you're prophesied to defeat Alduin. The Blades are rivals with the Greybeards, and the Blades want to destroy all the dragons while the Greybeards kind of want to create harmony with them. The Greybeards are led by this dragon named Parthenax, who is the all-knowing or the speaker of the shout. And your player goes to Parthenax multiple times to learn shouts that might help defeat Alduin. The Imperials and the Stormcloaks is another big quest line that you have to take into account. There's a big war going on in Skyrim during the time of when Alduin is back. This sort of idea of the Grey Imperial versus the Stormcloaks really didn't really interest me during the main storyline, and as I played through it, it's like, okay, the Imperials and the Stormcloaks, big whoop. It's the standard good versus bad guys, whichever side you want to take, you can take. At the beginning of the game, you're kind of not forced, you have to choose between the Imperials and the Stormcloaks, but then again, you can change sides later on in the game if you feel like it. There are lots of different factions outside of the main storyline that are really interesting and have really interesting storylines based upon within them. The Dark Brotherhood, the Companions, which are a group that are werewolves, the College of Winterhold, which focuses more on mage-like things, and if you're more of a mage, that might be something for you, and the one that I joined, the Thieves Guild. Each have unique quests that you need to complete while you're advancing your standing with each faction. And sometimes you can join multiple factions, or sometimes when you join one, it takes away the other one. So really choose your factions wisely. The only negative thing I have about the storyline is, as a Dragonborn, you're supposed to be this character that is strong, but you just kind of feel weak. You can tank hits, but your shouts really don't do anything. They're really underwhelming, I guess that's the best way to describe. But luckily they have a DLC later on that expands further into the Dragonborn and kind of makes you feel a lot more powerful. Speaking of DLC, let's move on to the final part of this, which is the DLC. As I said before, there were 3 DLCs released in Skyrim, the first being Dawnguard. The Dawnguard are a band of vampire hunters who rely on the use of their trademark crossbow against their pursuit against Clan Volkiar, a family of vampires. Players must choose which of the 2 factions they join with. The Dawnguard adds new content to the game, including weapons, spells, and armor, and expands the abilities afforded to players who choose to either become a vampire or werewolf. It also adds 2 new areas to explore outside of the mainland of Skyrim: the Soul Cairn, a plane of the Realm of Oblivion, and the Forgotten Vale. In my opinion, this DLC was It was really bland. It had a lot of simple story points that you could assume from the very beginning. I chose the side of the clan Volkiar, which you in turn become a vampire, and becoming a vampire lord is actually really cool. Makes you feel powerful. It really creates this unique experience that I would recommend for people to go and play. In terms of quests, there's just a lot of busy quests. You have to go and fetch this and bring it back, and oh, you brought it back, but there's something that's missing. You have to go and get that again. It just feels really like you just need to go and do something, but I don't know, it just struck me the wrong way. It felt like it was just a lot of busy work to get to the story, when you could have just presented your story in 3-ish hours rather than making it more than it actually was. The second DLC of Skyrim was named Hearthfire. Hearthfire allows the players to build houses and adopt children. There are 3 plots of land that are added to the game world, which players can purchase. Overall, I do not have an opinion on Hearthfire because even though I used it, it really wasn't my cup of tea, I guess you could say. I basically used that as a storage place to put chests and everything. I guess it's okay, and I guess it's kind of cool to be able to have the option to get children. It's just really interesting, and if it's for you, then it's going to be for you. I'd definitely recommend, if you're going to get the special edition, to check it out. The final DLC was called Dragonborn. Dragonborn is the third and final add-on for Skyrim. It revolves around the player character's efforts to defeat Mirak, the first dragon form who has become corrupted and seeks to control the world. The add-on takes place in Solstheim, an island northeast of Skyrim, which is presented as an open world. It adds new content to the game and allows players to ride on the backs of dragons, along with other shouts that can be learned exclusively from Solstheim. Overall, this was the best DLC in my opinion. It's really cool. It has really unique sort of ideas to it. Mirak is definitely a better villain than Alduin ever was, and it could ever plan to be. He really makes you feel worthless, and like as a Dragonborn, you haven't gone anywhere. Like, sure, you defeated the World Eater and fulfilled your prophecy, but what did that do? You're facing a person who has the same powers as you and is even stronger than you could ever be. Moving on to the world, Solstheim is really cool. It has a unique idea and really a unique sense of art style. The way you get over there is kind of cool too. You're introduced to this quest by cultists who ambush you, and you find a note that talks about the person that took them over here. It's really interesting and really cool how this DLC develops and all the different quirks and nuances within it. It really adds a unique feel and to the world and has a really good story, so I recommend you check that out. So that about wraps it up for the review in general. I'm going to have some overall opinion thoughts. The game is great. It has a lot of stuff to do in it. It fills a lot of the holes of exploration, good questline, good story, good lore. It has everything that you could ever want in it from a fantasy RPG action game. Mods add a lot of replayability to the game as well. There's some people that I know that have put over 800 hours in the game and really haven't even touched the story one bit. They've just been playing different mods and different ideas, and I think it's really cool that a game has really become that sort of idea. For people who are not into mods, the game has a lot of replayability because you can choose different classes, you can create different races, you can add different elements to quests. It's really unique. You can side with different factions as well. If I had to put a number on the game out of 10, I guess it would be an 8.3 out of 10. Let me hear your opinions on the game. Please comment down below and tell me what you thought of the game or what you would like to see in a future review. So with that, my name is Basin Boy, and I hope you have a fantastic day.